And away we go, episode 1099 of the Al Galdi podcast. It is Friday, June 20th, 2025, and we will have a Game 7 in the 2025 NBA Finals. The Indiana Pacers ripped the Oklahoma City Thunder 108-91 on Thursday night to even the best-of-7 finals at 3. This has been a good series. The ratings for the series have been bad, but the series has been good. Game 7, Sunday night at 8 in OKC. First NBA Finals Game 7 since 2016. Home teams are 15-4 all-time in NBA Finals Game 7s. By the way, one of those 4 losses was by the Seattle Supersonics, who of course became the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that loss was to the Washington Bullets in Game 7 of the 1978 NBA Finals. Hello and welcome to this Friday installment of the Al Galdi podcast. Next segment, great insight on the Commanders' offensive and defensive lines, as I'll chat with Brandon Thorn. He is the owner of the Trench Warfare newsletter, which you can find at trenchwarfare.substack.com. Brandon has emerged as one of the top NFL offensive line and defensive line analysts, and he's going to go in-depth with us on the Commanders' offensive and defensive lines, including a recent conversation that he had with Commanders' offensive line coach Bobby Johnson, what the team has at left tackle Laremy Tunsil, why Josh Conerly Jr. initially playing guard as opposed to tackle might make sense, why Brandon is bullish on Brandon Coleman at left guard, the strengths and concerns with the Commanders' revamped defensive line, perspective on interior defensive lineman Johnny Newton, and the value of interior pass rush in the current NFL. We will delve into the trenches. Brandon Thorn, owner of the Trench Warfare newsletter, next segment on the Commanders' offensive and defensive lines. Also on the show, I'll talk Nationals and Orioles. The Nats' 11-game losing streak, thankfully, mercifully, is over. A 4-3 11-inning win over the MLB-worst Colorado Rockies at Nationals Park on Thursday afternoon, as James Wood did as a franchise player should do. He is the Nats starting left fielder and number 2 batter, went 2 for 5 with 2 two-run homers, including a walk-off 2-out, 2-run homer to center field in the bottom of the 11th. How good is James Wood? The O's, they now have won 16 of their last 24 games, a 4-1 win at the Tampa Bay Rays on Thursday night for a split of a 4-game series. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me, the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Email from Ramesh in the United Kingdom on the Commanders. Writes Ramesh, hi Al, greetings from the UK, and I hope you're doing well. This is my first time writing since before the playoffs, where the Skins upped their game against tougher opponents and are now battle-tested for 2025. I'm confident that Jaden Daniels will take another big step against a tougher schedule next season. The Skins exceeded all expectations in reaching the NFC Championship, where the deciding factor was turnovers by the offense forced by the Eagles and not given away by the Skins. Too much criticism has been placed on the defense, which didn't play well but also didn't give the ball away 4 times. Credit has to be given to the Eagles. Can't believe I'm saying this. For actively forcing these turnovers. The offense was good enough to carry the team to 12 wins against a weak schedule. With Tunsil and Debo, the offense will be even better. This is why I'm okay with the lack of big-name signings on defense and an incremental approach this offseason. So everything is looking good, but I have one area for criticism. Shortly after the NFC Championship game, Josh Harris addressed the old team name and shut it down conclusively. This was a massive downer for me after the high of playoff success. I've supported this team since the 1980s, and to me, it will always be the Redskins. I cringe when I hear the Commanders' name and refuse to adopt it. It's not a terrible name, but it's bland and generic and was forced on us in highly questionable circumstances. I think that you're right in that Josh Harris would like to go back to the Redskins name, but isn't allowed by the NFL. It was notable that even the POTUS was cagey on the subject of the team name and failed to provide any momentum to the cause. Also notable that many NFL insiders constantly make slip-ups in which the insiders say Redskins. The new name obviously has not caught on with NFL insiders after 3 years. I wonder what team name is used at NFL owners' meetings. Rhetorical question, of course. But I don't see a return to the old name given the social climate in the U.S., and perhaps in 20 years, the Redskins name will be a trivia footnote like the Oilers name is today. Fans of the old name must know that with each passing year, the old name will gradually be forgotten and fade into obscurity, but the team will always be the Redskins to me. I've noticed that when reading listener correspondence, you appear to refer to the team by the name used by the listener, whether Redskins or Commanders. I appreciate this approach, which respects the difference of views on the subject. Finally, I appreciate you doing a recent piece on the late Jim Irsay, who provided the critical spark to get rid of Dan Snyder. As you highlighted, all Skins fans certainly should be very grateful to Jim Irsay for his role in the overthrow of the old regime and a bright new dawn for the Skins. Best wishes, and HTTR, Ramesh. Well, thank you for the email, Ramesh. We talked about Indianapolis Colts owner and CEO Jim Irsay off his death at 65 in a conversation with longtime Indianapolis sports columnist Bob Kravitz of bobkravitz.com. That was on episode 1082 of this podcast regarding the performance of the Commanders' defense in the 55-23 loss at the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship game this past January 26. So the defense in the game got shredded. But yes, the Commanders losing the turnover battle 4-0 was the number one reason for the loss. The Commanders allowed the Eagles to score 55 points, generate 459 total net yards of offense, average 6.95 yards per play, go 5 for 10 on third downs, and brace yourself for this, 7 for 7 in the red zone. That is bad defense. There's no arguing against that. But the impact of the Commanders losing the turnover battle 4-0 was huge. A good friend of this podcast, NFL analytics expert Kevin Cole of UnexpectedPoints.com. He does these advanced reviews of NFL games with advanced stats. The Commanders in the NFC Championship game got wrecked from the standpoint of expected points added, EPA, via losing the turnover battle 4-0. Wrote Cole, quote, "Fumble losses are viewed as particularly random by the adjusted scores model, and the Commanders went 0 for 3 recovering their fumbles in this game, while the Eagles' offense kept the ball secure. Those fumble losses were the first, second, and fourth biggest impact plays by EPA in the game, totaling 14.5 expected points down the drain." End quote. The Commanders lost 3 fumbles in the game. Receiver De'Ami Brown had a lost fumble on a reception in the first quarter. Running back Jeremy McNichols had a lost fumble on a kickoff return in the second quarter. And running back Austin Eckler had a lost fumble on a reception on the next to last snap of the third quarter. The Commanders in their 23-20 walk-off win at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on January 12th in the wild card round won the turnover battle 1-0. The Commanders in their 45-31 win at the Detroit Lions on January 18th in the divisional round won the turnover battle 5-0. But the Commanders in the NFC Championship game lost the turnover battle 4-0. It is crazy how turnovers can be. Up next, a conversation with Brandon Thorn about the Commanders' offensive and defensive lines.
Yo, it's D-Lo. I'm partnering with Ro. Women, y'all feel that? It's sexy. But if you're stressing about your performance, it throws you off. That's why I rock with Rose Sparks. Rose Sparks dissolve under your tongue and hit fast so you're ready when the moment pops off. You feel like a superhero. It's satisfying your partner. That's key. Rose Sparks help you last longer, stay fuller, and keep the whole vibe right. When prescribed, new patients get $15 off their first order. Hit up ro.co/backyard and to see if Rose Sparks are right for you. That's ro.co/backyard and see if Rose Sparks are right for you.
Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved. Do not undergo FDA safety effectiveness or manufacturing review. For full safety information, go to ro.co/safety-info.
Lowe's knows how to help you save. This July 4th, get up to 40% off select Whirlpool kitchen appliances. Plus, get an additional 10% off when you buy 2 or 3 select major appliances. And when you buy 4 or more, you'll save an additional 20%. Find the right appliances and features that fit your kitchen's unique needs and style. Shop Whirlpool 4th of July deals at Lowe's. Valid through 7/9. See Lowe's.com for details. Savings vary based on purchase amount. Selection varies by location.
Hey, if you happen to be listening to this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you can write a review of the podcast saying that you like it. The review can be just a sentence or two, but the reviews help out the podcast a lot. Thank you for doing them. The two position groups most impacted by moves by the Commanders this offseason have been the offensive and defensive lines, the trenches. The Commanders this offseason, in terms of the offensive line, traded for left tackle Laremy Tunsil from the Houston Texans, selected offensive lineman Josh Conerly Jr. with the number 29 overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft out of the University of Oregon, re-signed offensive tackle/guard Trent Scott and center/guard Michael Dieter as unrestricted free agents, signed guard Nate Herbig, offensive tackle Foster Sorrell, and offensive tackle Tyree Phillips as unrestricted free agents, and lost offensive tackle Cornelius Lucas as an unrestricted free agent to the Cleveland Browns. So the Commanders this offseason, in terms of the defensive line, signed Javon Kinlaw, Dietrich Wise Jr., Jacob Martin, and Eddie Goldman as unrestricted free agents, re-signed Cleveland Farrell, Sheldon Day, Jalen Holmes, and Carl Davis as unrestricted free agents, released interior defensive lineman Jonathan Allen, and lost edge defender Dante Fowler Jr. as an unrestricted free agent to the Dallas Cowboys. Where are we with the Commanders' offensive and defensive lines, especially off a major takeaway from the Philadelphia Eagles winning the Super Bowl for this past season being them having invested so heavily in their offensive and defensive lines? I'm very pleased to welcome back to the Al Galdi podcast a man who knows NFL offensive line and defensive line play exceptionally well, Brandon Thorn, owner of the Trench Warfare newsletter, which you can find at trenchwarfare.substack.com. Brandon has more than 12,000 subscribers, and among the latest items at trenchwarfare.substack.com is a lengthy interview that Brandon conducted with Commanders offensive line coach Bobby Johnson. You can follow Brandon on X at Brandon Thorn NFL. Hey, Brandon, how are you?
I'm doing really good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. You have carved out quite the niche for yourself as an NFL offensive line and defensive line analyst. There are not many people doing what you do, and you do what you do well. How did you get into doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so it was about 10 or so years ago, 2014 timeframe. I pursued a career outside of the military for the first time, and I always wanted to get into NFL scouting since basically I realized I couldn't play pro football. I joined the military out of high school and was in for 10 years, and I always wanted to just be a part of the NFL in some way, and I got really into the team building process, studying coaches, GMs, things like that, and had an opportunity to get out around that time, and just kind of started from scratch on social media, really, on Twitter, and started reaching out to people. And one of the people I came across my timeline was Ted Sundquist, who was a former general manager of the Broncos, who was also an Air Force veteran. And I had gotten out of the military in Colorado Springs. That was my last duty station. And he was living, 20 minutes away. So he had a speaking engagement nearby. I showed up, kind of introduced myself, through our Twitter conversations, and started writing for his website for free. And then we started a podcast together, and he kind of took me under his wing and taught me a lot about the NFL and scouting. And then through that podcast, I got to talk to LaCharles Bentley, who trains offensive linemen. And then I went to his inaugural clinic, and then met Duke Manyweather and Dan Hatman, who runs the scouting academy, and just all these people. And I was in a position to be able to do it for free for a while, so that was huge. And so I did that, and eventually started turning into part-time, full-time. And I got into the offensive and defensive line because I realized, when I was online during that time, that there was some good analysis, of course, but for offensive line in particular, there just really wasn't a whole lot out there. So I'd played it in high school, always had an appreciation for it, and I just kind of dove into that. And just built, a following, and just kind of got my name out there. And now I've been doing it full time for almost 6 years now. So, yeah, it's been a fun ride, though.
Awesome. Well, congrats on your success. So you spoke with Bobby Johnson. The Commanders hired him as their offensive line coach in February 2024 in assembling head coach Dan Quinn's coaching staff. Johnson was the New York Giants offensive line coach February 2022 to January 2024. His Giants offensive lines were not good, especially if you go off of ESPN's win rate metrics. But Johnson was the Buffalo Bills offensive line coach January 2019 to February 2022, and his Bills offensive lines were very good in terms of pass blocking based on ESPN's win rate metrics. And then the Commanders offensive line for this past season ended up being quite good. The Commanders for the 2024 regular season were number 9 in the NFL in ESPN's pass block win rate and were number 2 in the NFL in ESPN's run block win rate. What most struck you from your conversation with Bobby Johnson?
Oh man, a lot. It was a great conversation, over an hour, and I just really enjoyed it. He was just very thoughtful in his responses, a lot of insight, reflective about his career, honest. I felt like, just engaging, everything that you could want. Sitting down and talking to somebody for an hour, just really enjoyable for me. We had traded a lot of stories, of course, throughout his coaching career, and I became aware of him in 2018 when he was assistant offensive line coach with the Colts. And that's what led to him getting the job in Buffalo in 2019. But yeah, just prior to that Colts stop, he was the tight ends coach in Oakland for the Raiders. And we got to talk about, that was some of my favorite offensive lines and stuff during that time. And so, yeah, it was just a lot of fun. And, just hearing how he got the job. I believe he told me Davis Webb connected him with Cliff Kingsbury. And that's how they got connected, because they had never worked together before, prior to Washington. So it was, it was just cool. They just aligned in a lot of their philosophies in terms of scheme and just kind of how they wanted to go about building the run game and all that kind of stuff. And it obviously worked out. And it was just cool. The more I kind of sat there with them and thought about the Commanders and the structure of everything, it was just really cool. Just how, him, Cliff, Dan Quinn, all kind of got fired recently, at least, and they all came together, never worked together, and it just kind of hit a jackpot. With Jaden Daniels, of course, and just the run they went on was a lot of fun. So, that said, bringing back from an offensive line perspective, all 5 of their starters, and then at least, after not Cornelius Lucas, but, when Coleman took over full time, all 5 of the starters, and then adding Tunsil and Conerly. I mean, I'm pretty excited about the offensive line. I know Cosme won't be back for a little while, but considering what they were able to do last year with the personnel, and then just adding to it, essentially, a really, high quality veteran, and then a really promising young rookie, I think it's going to, give them a lot of flexibility this year. So I'm really interested to see how they kind of adapt this year based on what they did last year.
If people watch the video of your conversation with Bobby Johnson, they see in your background a Laremy Tunsil number 78 Texans jersey hanging on a wall. You are a fan of his work. What would you say that the Commanders have in Tunsil?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of great line play, regardless of who is, out there really. So, yeah, but I was very, very fortunate that Laremy sent that to me. It was a game-worn signed jersey that he sent from this past season, so that was really cool. But, yeah, I mean, Tunsil last year, honestly, had a little bit of a down year. Especially considering 2023 when he was arguably the best left tackle in the league, certainly in the conversation. Last year took a little bit of a step back, but, the entire offensive line there took a step back. So it was kind of a collective failure, I think, coaching failure. Obviously, everyone got fired in terms of offensive coordinator, offensive line coach. So there's a lot of issues there. So he was just kind of a part of it. But, yeah, it was a little bit of a down year. But, I mean, if you look at the past to determine the future, and in a sense, look at his track record, I think you would be shocked if you're not getting a top 8 to 10 left tackle, and there's a chance you could still get a top 5 left tackle. I mean, he's not super old, so Yeah, I mean, you're getting a really good player, I think, regardless at left tackle, one of the best pass protecting left tackles in the league, just in terms of a guy you can have that can block almost any pass rusher one-on-one, which is very rare for left tackles for anybody. So I think just adding that aspect to the offense is probably the biggest thing, and that could really unlock a lot of different schemes that they probably weren't comfortable with doing last year. You know, they were one of the highest play action percentage teams in the league last year. I would imagine that drops a little bit this year, maybe a little bit more true drop back because you have Tunsil. You could funnel some help to the right side now as opposed to having to worry about both sides, at least in one-on-one situations. So just things like that. I just think his presence adds flexibility more than anything, I think, especially in pass protection.
Are you a believer in Josh Conerly as a starting right tackle for the Commanders?
Long term, yeah. But, like week one, I have questions there. I mean, I just, based on how I graded him, I had a high second round grade on him. So potential starter, basically, but somebody who will start for you within that rookie contract for sure. I mean, he's extremely young. So I think his best football is in front of him, that's for sure. It's just a matter of when he'll be ready, especially considering he's, switching sides. And, I imagine that would take a little bit of time to get acclimated. And, you factor in too, like he played on the right side a little bit in the Senior Bowl. And I was there. He was, very up and down there, clearly not as comfortable. But, I think the timing of guys switching sides is the key. If you give a guy, 2, 3, 4 months to switch sides, then it shouldn't be a problem, especially if they're real young like that. So I'm not too worried about switching sides, but regardless of the side, even if he was on the left, I just think, it might be a little rocky at first. I think he needs to get stronger, needs to get a little bit bigger, just in terms of just a little bit more mass and just play strength to handle power a little bit better and pass protection. But there's a lot to like. He's really athletic, really good mover. I love that he's going to be able to kind of come up under Laremy Tunsil, who, to be honest, I talked to at least one guy in a personnel department in draft season who we both kind of said, like, yeah, if you squint a little bit, there's some shades of Tunsil and Conerly's game. So, I just think that archetype is there. Just in terms of how fluid and smooth of movers they are in their pass set, in the zone run game, things like that. He isn't as high quality, as much of a finished product as Tunsil was coming out of Ole Miss, but you can see, the pathway there to him becoming a good starter. So, yeah, it's just it may be second half of the year we might see a little bit better stuff from him than the first if he does start right out of the gate.
We're talking Commanders with Brandon Thorn, owner of the Trench Warfare newsletter, which you can find at trenchwarfare.substack.com. Commanders general manager Adam Peters, head coach Dan Quinn, and offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury all have left the door open for Josh Conerly playing guard and not tackle. The Commanders starting right guard Samuel Cosmi is coming off a torn right ACL that he suffered in the 45-31 win at the Detroit Lions this past January 18th in the divisional round of the playoffs. What would you think about the Commanders having Conerly at guard, at least initially, for this coming season?
That'd be kind of funny just because Tunsil started at guard too. But yeah, I think he could do it, in a pinch kind of thing, like short term, just until Cosmi gets back, if they want to try that and then just stick with Wiley at right tackle, I think. Yeah, that would make a lot of sense to me. And then when Cosmi comes back, put Conerly outside. That seems like a kind of a perfect, ideal succession plan in theory. But yeah, Biadasz is obviously the center. Coleman's going to play left guard, from what I understand. So I think left tackle, left guard, center is locked down, unless Coleman doesn't look good there, which I highly doubt. Yeah, and then to me, that makes a lot of sense. So, yeah.
And it sounds like you're bullish on Brandon Coleman at left guard off his time at left tackle this past season.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of my favorite guys in the draft class that year. I thought he was a guy who could play either, inside or out. So yeah, I mean, especially because like that's kind of the plan right now. I mean, that's what Coach Johnson alluded to, at least during our conversation. He's playing guard and all that, so he's going to be guard from like day one of camp and have plenty of time to get acclimated there. Yeah, I mean, I don't see why he wouldn't be as good as he was at tackle last year. I would look at that as kind of like the floor.
The Commanders' run defense this past season was bad. They this offseason have revamped their defensive line. Do you like it? Do you have questions?
I have a fair amount of questions, yeah, for sure, especially off the edge. I've liked Teatric Wise for a while, but he's like a rotational piece, inside-out versatility is nice. Him and Dorrance Armstrong both, have that inside-out versatility. So I think they have some versatility on this front, especially on passing downs. They definitely don't have like a guy off the edge, like a true number one edge rusher type of thing, but not that you necessarily need that either. So that is what it is. It's kind of, meh. But on the inside, it's also, I don't know that you're going to be as good as you've been in recent years. Losing John Allen, even if, he wasn't peak John Allen anymore, I'm not crazy about Javon Kinlaw. I just think he's been kind of a career underachiever. So maybe, it's always like when you see a guy like that, the way he looks, his frame, his size, all that, like he looks the part, but he's just never been able to play up to that. So, in the back of your mind, you wonder, like, is it possible? Can it still happen? But I mean, I'm not like counting on it. I still just think he's been kind of disappointing throughout his whole career. He's fine, but I don't think you're getting peak John Allen or anything like that. So yeah, I mean, Deron Payne obviously is really good. I think really a lot is riding on Jerson Newton, and just what he looks like, because I think if he is, going to be like an above average player, then this defensive line could be okay. I think that'll be really key because, everywhere else, I kind of think what you're getting for the most part, but Newton's kind of the wild card that can kind of change this from below average to average. That's kind of how I see it. But yeah, I think they can manufacture pressure and things like that. They don't necessarily need the D-line to carry everything either, but yeah, that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, interior defensive lineman Johnny Newton. The Commanders took him in the second round of the 2024 NFL Draft out of the University of Illinois. Took him with the number 36 overall pick. Newton, last offseason, had the foot surgeries. January 2024, right foot surgery. May 2024, left foot surgery. But Newton this past regular season played in 16 of the Commanders' 17 games, and he this past postseason played in all 3 of the team's games. But his overall performance was not great. Newton, for the 2024 regular season, had an overall grade for Pro Football Focus of just 51.6. That's bad. PFF grades on a scale of 0 to 100. 60 is average, and he, for the 2024 regular season, registered a run defense grade per PFF of just 44.8. Did you like Newton going into the 2024 draft?
Yeah, I did. I didn't do like a full scouting report on him. I didn't study, 6-7 games of him or anything, but I did see quite a bit of him studying the entire offensive line class. And he was always a guy who popped to me, who, I was really intrigued by. He kind of reminded me a little bit of Sheldon Richardson when he was playing in the league, just in terms of the way they were built. And in some regards, at least, I think Richardson was quite a bit longer than him, but just in like stylistically, I thought that they were similar. They could really good job of slipping off blocks and disengaging, really good with their hands. Just tough guy to block, so yeah, I mean, I think you saw flashes of that a little bit last year, and I'm hopeful about Newton, becoming an above average, quality kind of starter. So I think, there's reason to expect this defensive line to be pretty solid.
The value of interior pass rush in the current NFL. Commanders defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. on June 4th did a pre-OTA practice press conference. We, during that presser, had this exchange between Commanders insider Nikki Javala of the Washington Post and Witt.
More of a philosophical question. Mm-hmm. You guys have a lot of talent on the interior of the D-line. Does the interior rush, in your mind, is it more valuable than, rushing from the edge?
I don't think it's more valuable. I think it can play in concert together. If you can push the pocket and get the quarterback off the spot from inside and change and move his eyes, that makes a difference. If he has the ability to step up and get comfortable stepping up, that hurts you. But I think just pressure in general is good, no matter where it comes from. But internal and external pressure, are equally.
Okay, we are seeing interior defensive linemen get paid in a way that's indicative of interior pass rush having increased in value. To what extent in the current NFL has the value of interior pass rush gotten closer to the value of edge pass rush, given how quickly quarterbacks now make throws?
I think it's closed a little bit. I think Aaron Donald had a lot to do with that, and to some, on a lesser degree, Chris Jones. I think whenever you have a transcendent player like Aaron Donald, it makes the whole league kind of reevaluate things like, maybe interior pass rush is a little bit more valuable, than maybe we thought, in some circles at least. I know some people have always thought that, but so I think he shifted things a little bit because it kind of recalibrated, what we thought was possible in some sense, from the interior. Even though you're not necessarily ever going to find an Aaron Donald, you just kind of wonder, hey, if we did kind of focus a little bit more on this, is there like some hidden value here? So I think maybe a little bit more emphasis on that has come, at least in the media and just our awareness of it and what can be done there. And then Chris Jones now has kind of taken up the mantle as the best interior pass rusher in the league. Kind of he's a closer and he's been able to do it. But this isn't unprecedented either. I go back to growing up watching Warren Sapp, kind of a similar type thing. So we've got John Randall. We've always had guys here and there to be able to do that. But yeah, so I just think, more so than how we think about it, the fact of the matter is there's so many high-end three techniques in the NFL. I know Donald is retired, and some other guys, high-quality guys have retired recently, Fletcher Cox, Geno Atkins over the last few years. So we've kind of had some of those guys drop off, but, you got Dexter Lawrence, and you got all these, Jeffrey Simmons, and there's always the high-end guys. There's like 6-7 elite type of guys, and then it's just a very deep position. I've been saying that for a long time, basically since I've been starting watching it. So I think more than anything, just defensive tackle and edge rush. Defensive line is probably the deepest position in football, in my opinion. I think receivers probably in that conversation now too over the last couple of years. But yeah, there's just so many guys on that side of the ball.
Brandon Thorn, owner of the Trench Warfare newsletter, which you can find at trenchwarfare.substack.com. Brandon, thanks. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This was fun.
Hey, congratulations to a good friend of this podcast, Chris Nace, lead attorney for the Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers. Chris has been named a 2025 Law Dragon 500 leading plaintiff consumer lawyer. His dedication to justice and client advocacy continues to make a real impact. Also, congrats to Samantha Peters of the Nace Law Group. She was recently elected to the Board of Governors of the Trial Lawyers Association of Metropolitan Washington, D.C. Founded in 1979, the Nace Law Group is a Washington, D.C.-based family law firm that handles medical malpractice, personal injury, birth injury, legal malpractice, and consumer protection cases, offering aggressive advocacy for victims in Washington, D.C. and West Virginia. If you feel that you've been wronged, if you think that you've been wronged but aren't sure, contact the Nace Law Group, accident and injury lawyers, and schedule a no-obligation appointment. Call 202-902-7611 or visit WashingtonDCInjuryLawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group is outstanding. Chris Nace and the rest of the team do excellent work. They'll fight for you and your family. They can help you and your family make difficult decisions. So the Nace Law Group has recovered millions of dollars for the sick and injured. If you have a case, contact the the Nace Law Group. Call 202-902-7611 or visit Washington, D.C. injurylawyers.com and tell the Nace Law Group that Al Galdi sent you. That's 202-902-7611 or Washington, D.C. injurylawyers.com. And make sure that you mention that Al Galdi sent you. The Nace Law Group, Accident and Injury Lawyers. Well, at last, the Nationals have won a game again. Their 11-game losing streak, which got ugly in many ways, came to an end on Thursday afternoon. A 4-3, 11-inning win over the MLB-worst Colorado Rockies at Nationals Park to snap the 11-game losing streak, to avoid a 4-game sweep, and to conclude a 1-6 homestand against the National League East worst Miami Marlins and MLB-worst Colorado Rockies. The homestand was a disaster, but it did end with a win for Nats manager Davey Martinez, and yes, the boys.
I'm proud of the boys.
Yes, thank you, Davey. Proud of the boys. We finally can play that drop again. We only played that drop after Nationals wins, and we got a Nats win on Thursday afternoon. The Nats in MLB's 2025 regular season now are 31-44. This was another lackluster game for the Nats offensively. Just 4 runs in 11 innings, just 8 hits, no walks, just 1 for 7 with runners in scoring position. The 8 hits were 2 home runs, a double, and 5 singles, but the 2 homers came from one player, James Wood, who apparently decided that an 11-game losing streak was long enough. The Nats franchise left fielder took it upon himself to end this losing streak. Wood, as the Nats starting left fielder and number 2 batter, went 2 for 5 with 2 2-run homers. He and the Nats 2-run fourth had a first-pitch 2-run homer to center field for a 2-0 Nats lead. The homer per StatCast went a projected 403 feet and had an exit velocity of 110 miles per hour. And Wood in the Nats 2-run 11th had a walk-off 2-out, 2-run homer to center field for a 4-3 Nats win to end the team's 11-game losing streak. The homer per StatCast went a projected 428 feet and had an exit velocity of 110.2 miles per hour. Where would the Nats be without James Wood? He, for this regular season, is number 1 among all qualified Nats players in OPS, 944, and is number 1 among all Nats in home runs, 20. He had been having a bad month of June, but he now, for this month of June, has an OPS of 899. So much for the bad month of June. Here was Nats manager Davey Martinez during his postgame press conference on Thursday afternoon on James Wood smashing 2 2-run homers, including a walk-off 2-run homer.
For me, it's just about him getting a strike. Yeah, man. We thought for a minute there, I thought, they'll probably pitch around him, but he was poised. He took the splitter, but he, as he always does, he's got that slow heartbeat. He's, got a good pitch to hit, and he hit in center field. And I just was like, hey, man, please go. I don't want to play no more. Let's go. Let's get on the plane and let's win a game. And it was awesome.
Yeah, and more from the Davey Martinez postgame press conference coming up shortly. Davey Martinez getting emotional during that postgame presser. I mentioned that the Nats totaled 8 hits. 7 of the 8 hits came from the top 3 batters in the lineup. C.J. Abrams, as the Nats starting shortstop and number 1 batter, went 2 for 5 with 2 singles. James Wood, as the Nats starting left fielder and number 2 batter, went 2 for 5 with the 2 2-run homers. And Luis Garcia Jr., as the Nats starting second baseman and number 3 batter, went 3 for 4 with a double and 2 singles. He did commit a throwing error as he continues to have a wretched defensive season, but Wood, Abrams, and Garcia are the Nats' top 3 qualified players in OPS. Wood is number 1 at 944, Abrams is number 2 at 814, Garcia is number 3 at 725. The Nats starting pitcher in this 4-3 11-inning win over the Rockies on Thursday afternoon was Trevor Williams. He allowed 2 runs in 5 1/3 innings with 6 strikeouts versus 1 walk. He did a good job. He did give up 8 hits, which were 2 doubles and 6 singles, but he threw a lot of strikes, 87 pitches, 57 strikes, just 30 balls. A second consecutive good outing for Williams, seeing the Nats 4-3 loss to the Marlins this past Saturday afternoon, officially allowed 2 runs in 5 1/3 innings. Both the Marlins and Rockies are bad, but maybe, hopefully, Williams is getting better. Trevor Williams now for this regular season, 15 starts, ERA of 5.54, whip of 1.45, and the Nats bullpen in this 4-3 11-inning win over the Rockies on Thursday afternoon was really good. 5 Nats relievers combined to allow 1 run unearned in 5 2/3 innings with 7 strikeouts. Cole Henry, he faced 2 batters and got 2 outs, each via a swinging strikeout. He came into the game in the top of the 6th with runners on second and third, 1 out, and the game tied at 2, and he generated back-to-back swinging strikeouts. Jose A. Ferrer tossed 1 2/3 scoreless innings with 2 swinging strikeouts. Kyle Finnegan tossed 1 2/3 perfect innings, including a perfect top of the 9th to preserve a 2-all tie. Zach Brixey tossed a scoreless and hitless top of the 10th to preserve a 2-all tie. And Ryan Ludus in the top of the 11th allowed an unearned run. He gave up a leadoff first pitch RBI single by Michael Tolia to right center field for a 3-2 Rockies lead. Here was some more of Davey Martinez during his postgame press conference on Thursday afternoon. This on the Nats win, and you will hear him get emotional, and then you'll hear a follow-up exchange. Take a listen.
I mean, I talk about these guys all the time, but how they don't quit, they keep battling. The universe was lined up today, right? I mean, look, we got a big guy up there, the chance to win the game. He delivers. The bullpen, man, amazing job by those guys coming in. Cole Henry today throwing 98, getting 2 big outs for us, and then Ferrer Finnegan, keeping us there, and then putting guys in spots like Britsky and Ryan. Tremendous. I can't say enough about K-Bear. K-Bear called yesterday till 11:30 at night. Talked to me yesterday about, I'm playing. I want to be on the field when we win. What a job. I mean, awesome. Regardless of if he hits or not, he stepped up, man, caught a great game. So these guys got heart. I love it.
With K-Bear in particular, why is that a moment that stands out to you so much?
I mean, the fact that he wants to play says a lot, especially to play in a game like that. Says a lot about this team.
So how about that? Davey Martinez getting emotional during that post-game press conference. It has been a very rough last few weeks for Davey Martinez, no doubt. The 11-game losing streak, the now infamous post-game press conference comments from this past Saturday afternoon, him saying, quote, "It's never on coaching, never on coaching, it's never on the coaches. It's always been about the players, always," end quote. The constant talk about whether he should/will be fired, a lot had to have been weighing on the mind of Davey Martinez, and so he got emotional during the post-game presser on Thursday afternoon, and we heard him get emotional in talking about K-Bit Ruiz. Look, Ruiz continues to struggle. He on Thursday afternoon, as the Nats starting catcher and number 8 batter, went 0 for 4. His OPS for this regular season is down to 588, but that doesn't mean that he isn't a good guy, that he isn't a good teammate. He plays a lot. He wants to play. That clearly means a lot to Davey Martinez. Josh Bell, he is the Nats starting DH and number 6 batter, went 0 for 3. His OPS for this regular season is down to 609. Next up for the Nats is a 9-game trip out west, beginning with a 3-game series at the National League West leading Los Angeles Dodgers. Game 1 Friday night at 10:10. Mackenzie Gore will be the Nats starting pitcher. Clayton Kershaw will be the Dodgers starting pitcher. How about that pitching matchup? Gore versus Kershaw. Game 2 Saturday night at 10:10. Jake Irvin will be the Nats starting pitcher. Game 3 Sunday afternoon at 4:10. Michael Soroka will be the Nats starting pitcher. Well, the Orioles now have as many wins over the team's last 24 games as the team had over its first 50 games in MLB's 2025 regular season, 16-8 since the 16-34 start. A 4-1 win at the Tampa Bay Rays on Thursday night for a split of a 4-game series. This was a game for which the start was delayed for 10 minutes due to rain, but this also was a game that put the O's, Joe Angel, back in the win column.
And the Orioles again in the win column.
Yes, Sergio, the win column. The O's in this regular season now are 32-42, third worst record in the American League. But would you believe that the O's are just 6 games behind the Boston Red Sox for the American League's third and final wild card spot? That is crazy. Now, we on Thursday night did have a scary situation. Top of the 7th, a foul ball off the bat of Orioles catcher Adley Rutschman went into the Rays dugout and struck Rays reliever Hunter Biggie, who, along with being hit, took a scary fall. The game was stopped for a good bit of time as medical personnel attended to Biggie. After some time, Biggie was placed on a stretcher. Did give the thumbs up to the crowd, but frightening stuff. We certainly wish Hunter Biggie the best. Here were the first 2 exchanges of the post-game session for Orioles interim manager Tony Mansolino with reporters on Thursday night.
Obviously just a really scary situation there in the 7th. What are kind of the emotions in the dugout at that point?
Yeah, it's really scary. It's terrifying. I mean, we sit in these dugouts every night, and in a lot of ways, you kind of feel like a sitting duck a lot of nights. So, it's just terrifying. We wish the best for the player that got hit. We don't have any information. It's just really scary for us all.
Is it difficult for players after something like that happens to get back in the mode of, hey, we got to play now?
Yeah, I mean, they're humans. I mean, without a doubt. I mean, I would be concerned if it wasn't difficult. These are really good guys, and in Adley's case, he's an incredible human being, so it probably does affect him a little bit. I'd be surprised if it doesn't. So you see the look on his face a little bit. He was very concerned, and definitely affected him a tick, and we'll get through it.
Well, the O's on Thursday night scored 4 runs on just 6 hits, which were a home run, a double, and 4 singles. The O's drew 6 walks, went 2 for 6 with runners in scoring position. Colton Cowser homered for a 3rd consecutive game. He is the Orioles starting left fielder and number 7 batter, went 2 for 4 with a 3-run homer and a double. Cowser in an Orioles 3-run 6th had a 2-out 3-run homer to right field on an 0-2 pitch for a 4-1 Orioles lead. The O's on June 2nd announced having reinstated Cowser from the 60-day injured list. He had been on that since April 28th, this off having been on the 10-day injured list since March 31st. All of this due to a left thumb fracture that he suffered on a headfirst slide into first base in the Orioles' 3-1 loss at the Toronto Blue Jays on March 30th. Cowser, since coming off the 60-day IL, has a slugging percentage of .609. 5 home runs and 2 doubles. So here was Tony Mansolino during his postgame session with reporters on Thursday night on Colton Cowser.
Yeah, he's been great. I mean, that's, we've missed him a lot. The slide in Toronto and kind of everything there. Then he goes flying into the wall in Camden, and we missed him for a few days there. But, this is a multifaceted player that can affect the game in a lot of ways. And one of those ways is hitting the ball over the fence, and we've seen it the last few nights.
Yes, we have. Really good to have Colton Cowser back. The Orioles starting pitcher in this 4-1 win at the Rays on Thursday night was former Ray Charlie Morton. He was good for a 4th time in 5 starts. He allowed 1 run in 6 innings with 7 strikeouts versus no walks. He gave up 6 hits, which were a double and 5 singles. He threw a lot of strikes, 84 pitches, 60 strikes versus just 24 balls. Morton did commit a throwing error, did issue a hit by pitch, but how about what is happening with Charlie Morton? The O's this past June 3rd announced having agreed with Morton on a 1-year contract as a free agent. The contract reportedly a 1-year, $15 million contract. This is his age 41 season. He was in the Orioles rotation to begin this regular season. He was horrendous. He was demoted to the bullpen in late April, but he now has very much earned his way back into the rotation. Morton now, over his last 8 games, 5 starts and 3 relief appearances, has allowed just 10 runs, 9 earned in 35 and a third innings with 46 strikeouts versus 10 walks. He's been so much better lately. Tony Mansolino during his postgame session with reporters on Thursday night on Charlie Morton.
He threw strikes, man. I mean, he pounded the zone. That's been kind of the whole thing with Charlie. When he's in the zone, he's throwing strikes. That's kind of what we've gotten. I mean, you go back now, you guys can look it up, but, probably 7 out of 8 appearances have looked something similar to that right there. So it's Charlie Morton. I think he passed a pretty big-time player tonight on the strikeout list, my understanding. So, when you hear the name that he passed, and I think it was Roy Halladay, right? You passed Roy Halladay on strikeouts. It's a heck of a career. So, we saw early in the year, we saw him struggle a little bit, and, the last 7-8 outings, that's kind of just been who he's been.
Yes, it has been. And the Orioles bullpen in this 4-1 win at the Rays on Thursday night was back to being good off a bad game in the 12-8 loss at the Rays on Wednesday night. 4 Orioles relievers combined for 3 scoreless innings with 6 strikeouts. Sir Anthony Dominguez tossed a scoreless bottom of the 7th with 2 swinging strikeouts despite issuing a leadoff walk, then giving up a single, and then issuing a wild pitch, giving the Rays runners on second and third with no outs. Gregory Soto, he in the bottom of the 8th faced 4 batters, got 2 outs, each via a swinging strikeout. Brian Baker, he in the bottom of the 8th faced 2 batters and got 1 out. And Felix Bautista tossed a perfect bottom of the 9th with 2 called strikeouts for the save. 6 games behind the Red Sox for the American League's 3rd and final wild card spot. Next up for the O's is a 3-game series at the American League East leading New York Yankees. Game 1 Friday night at 7:05, Tomoyuki Sagano will be the Orioles starting pitcher. Game 2 Saturday afternoon at 1:05, Zach Eflin will be the Orioles starting pitcher. Game 3 Sunday morning at 11:35, Dean Kramer will be the Orioles starting pitcher. And that'll do it for you and me for now. Keep the feedback coming. You can hit me up on X at Al Galdi. You can email me the Al Galdi podcast at yahoo.com. Monday show, episode 1100. We'll have a lot for you on the Commanders. Also on Monday's show, I'll talk Nationals and Orioles. The Nats this weekend have a 3-game series at the Los Angeles Dodgers. The O's this weekend have a 3-game series at the New York Yankees. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you on Monday.
I can't say enough about K-Bear. K-Bear called yesterday till 11:30 at night. Talked to me yesterday about, I'm playing. I want to be on the field when we win. What a job. I mean, awesome. Regardless of if he hits or not, he stepped up, man, caught a great game. So these guys got heart. I love it.